Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. It's Fatmata here from Traditionally Inspired Meaningful Art. Happy New Year. I hope you've had a phenomenal start to 2023, all of the few hours that you've had within this fabulous year. I promised you in my community tab a video to show you the last two makes that I was able to squeeze out at the end of 2022. So here it is. I mentioned to you that I was going to make another McCalls shirt. This is M7825 and I previously made it using the awesome cotton sateen fabric that I picked up at G Street Fabrics. Alright, so for the cotton wall version that I ended up making, I wanted to make use of this fabulous fabric that I had picked up at Mood Fabrics. I'd previously made a wrap dress out of it that I just was not reaching for, so I wanted to refashion it and turn it into this top. And I ended up going for view C, which is what the model is wearing in the image. So it has this sort of sleeve here detailing, as you can see with the cuff. I'm just going to make a long story really short. I did not have enough fabric after I cut out the bodice pieces, the back and all of that, to have a really full section. The pattern piece for this sleeve section here is quite large, okay? So it is wide. I didn't have enough width nor length of the fabric because of how I had to cut it. It was already a skirt, so you can imagine I was really playing pattern Tetris. In the end though, because I didn't have enough width and length of this, I was trying to compensate for that by extending the top part of the sleeve here. I extended that by about 1.5 inches. And then I added about 1 inch to the sleeve cuff. Now, I think either one of those alterations would have been enough, but because I did both, that ended up making the sleeves far too long. And I love a long sleeve, don't get me wrong. However, what it then ended up doing to the actual sleeve cuff was that it just didn't look nice. So I ended up turning that over about 1 inch on the inside, and I had to add some more trim to it here. Hi. And then went ahead and put that together. Now, because of that, it's not laying nicely flat anymore. So I might go in and just add some sew-in snaps just to make sure that that lays flat. But for the most part, I pretty much like it. Hi, Umo. I also changed out my buttons. I originally had a different set of buttons in there, and I wanted to test out a method that I've been hearing about for quite some time in the sewing community, which is actually using the sewing machine to sew on your buttons. I'm still using my Singer sewing machine, my older machine, and I don't know that I ever purchased the button foot for it. So the attachment that you put on to actually hold a button in place while you sew it in, not the buttonhole foot, just to make that clarification. So instead, I just taped the buttons that I had initially to the fabric. I made sure that I sort of, yes, so all done? So with that being said, I tried to go ahead and tape down my buttons and then adjust my zigzag foot to go ahead and do the zigzag stitch to sew it in place, because I was assuming that's what folks are doing. And I broke five buttons out of a set of buttons that I only had 12 of to begin with. So I was already cutting it real close, and that just did it for me. So I had to remove those buttons. And then I found these really cute buttons too in my stash, and I replaced it for that. I also used some trim that I've had in my stash for some time that I picked up at the thrift store for $1, and it has like 30 yards of trim on there, and I am just obsessed with it. But it's this little gorgeous trim detail here, and I made sure to go ahead and add that to all of the various seams all along the garment, including the sleeve cuff, as well as the center front placket, as well as the back yoke. So I really just love that trim. About the length, I ended up going with the length that is in view B. So hopefully you can see that there, but it is sort of a cropped in the front and then a little bit lower than it dipped in the back, but it is much shorter than the length of views C and D, which was the first version that I made. I actually wish that I had at least dipped the front a little bit. It's very hard for it to stay tucked in, and that was the primary reason, you know, that I was okay with doing it cropped, was because I could see myself wearing this tucked in a lot, and it does not want to stay tucked in because of how cropped the front is. I really did that just because I was limited in terms of fabric, but now I wish I would have tried to find a way to make it work. Honestly, that wouldn't have been that much more fabric. And you know, looking back, I probably could have squeezed it out a little bit. So that's the only thing that I look back and I'm like, oh, I really wish I would have done that differently. Once you do a burrito method yoke, I mean, is there any going back, my friends? Probably not. So that's what the inside looks like. I also ended up doing a new seam for me, which is the flat felled seam. So I did that on the inner seam right here, the side seams. And I just love that touch because it's a shirt and a seam that I really haven't utilized much. I wanted to just give it a go. I did that in the wearable toile as well. I did flat felt seams along the side seam. So there you have it, my second M7838, and I definitely could see myself making more in the future. I think it's a fabulous blouse top pattern, and if you have it in your stash or if it's one that you might consider picking up, I highly recommend. I think it was great. Now I do see myself making it again and then hacking the sleeve to do just a plainer sleeve for sure in the future. So that's something that you could also look forward to as well. Now on to what I am wearing. I was able to make the Simplicity S9539 pattern. This is a Mimi G pattern, obviously. And I loved just the wrap style of it. I felt like the V in the front kind of came down a bit further, which I really enjoyed. I like that it has a collar. I just love the way that it wraps, almost like sarong style. It's gorgeous. Now, I think that Mimi G, like in my mind, I picture Mimi G being short or shorter than me for sure. And this dress on her, which is view A, is what she's wearing, hits her at her calf. So when I looked at view A in the line drawings, it is the longer of the two versions. I was making view A and I felt like, well, if it hits her at her calf and I want mine to go a bit longer than that, like to my ankle, then I should extend my pattern piece, maybe by, let's say, 4 inches if I'm thinking from like my calf to my, like where I wanted it to hit. But when I looked at this pattern piece, it is long. It's very long. And I just could not for the life of me understand how that was hitting her at her calf, right? And for me, the picture on the envelope should very much be representative of what I would make if I were to make it, especially if there's no indication that it's been altered. You know what I mean? So if they're telling me that's view A and it's hitting her at her calf, and if I assume that I'm taller than her, then I would assume that when I make it, it's gonna be a bit shorter. I'm gonna stand up and actually show you that pattern piece on me so you can actually see it. But I remember cutting it out and nothing went off in my mind to say like, Fatmata, don't add any length because obviously this is gonna be way too long. I was like, I trust the pattern envelope. So I know that this is very long, but somehow maybe there's some instruction of something that I'm gonna have to do to it that's going to shrink or eat up some of that length. It did not. It did not. This ended up being such a gown on me when I made it because I made that alteration to add 4 inches of length to the bottom that I didn't need to do, and that's like on all of the wrap skirt pieces. So that was a lot of, unfortunately, wasted fabric basically. This fabric fabric is from G Street Fabric, and I actually made my Sicily slip dress out of this fabric back in February. So I've held on to this. I didn't really like how my Sicily slip dress turned out. I don't know that I'm going to keep it for me because I need to revisit that pattern. So I wanted to have something made out of this print because I just think it's so darling. Let me stand up. So here it is. Here's the tie. Something else that I did, I lined my tie. They only want you to cut out one piece, but because the inside of my fabric looks like this, I did not want that to be showing. So I lined it. I just cut two of it. And for the wrap portion, I also created just sort of a facing for this long bit right here. So here is the pattern piece for the tie front here, pattern piece 10. So I basically cut a facing from this whole section. So I just made a straight line here and cut out this shape up until that line and then attached it to the inside. That was something that was important to me because I knew I'd be really displeased by seeing the inside of the fabric. And luckily enough, I had enough of the offcuts of this to be able to cut out those facing pieces. So that worked out well. I ended up cutting a size 10 in the bodice, grading out to a size 12 so that I can start with the skirt pieces at a size 12 and grade out further. I knew that I needed to grade out at the hips quite a bit. And I also extended the flaps for the inner wrap as well, again, to give myself a bit more coverage. So for pattern piece 11, the skirt left front, I also extended that, not only at the hip, to extend that quite a bit. So here is the line for size 12, and then I added maybe, I mean, that's almost an inch by the time you get to the bottom here. So about an inch, but I just gradually added that and then marked where the hip was. And then as you can see here, I added on the edge there about maybe an inch and a half. So I tried to add length where I could, and also for the front wrap over as well, pattern piece 10, I also added a little bit there. And yet and still, it does open when I walk. I tried to wear it the other day. I had tights on and my tall boots, and still, like, it was just opening up way too much for me. So I have made a wrap dress before. This one here that I made back in 2020. And what I actually did was I added just like some jersey sort of fabric. This is actually sort of like a knit lining sort of fabric, and I added that to actually attach, so it became more of a faux wrap, and that just keeps everything neat and tidy. And I think what I'm going to do is get a fabric like that, which I think I do have in my stash in a navy colorway, and do the same with this wrap, because I would love to wear it and feel comfortable wearing it, but currently I do not. It opens, even as I'm seated right now, like it's opening up, and that is not going to work for me. So the only thing that I wish I would have done, which I did think about it but didn't execute on it, was to actually add like a piping or some sort of decorative element to the collar so that it doesn't just melt into the rest of the fabric. Because this is a print, I took that into consideration. I was like, oh, that's probably gonna get lost when it lays on the flap. So all of the hard work that I put into adding this beautiful collar just sort of goes away when it's laying down, because there's nothing to sort of define it. I do have a trim that I think I might still be able to put in. It'll just have to be stitched on top though, so I'll see if I end up getting to that, but I like it. I like it. I like the wrap feature. I think it looks really nice. The last thing that I cut out in 2022 was the McCalls M7925. This was in my Make 9 for 2022, and I had many different thoughts on the fabrics that I was going to use for it, but never really settled on something. But in like the final days of 2022, I ended up going for this. So you may remember this fabric from my Mood Fabrics haul from my birthday this year. And I'm really excited that I settled on using this. It is a cotton voile fabric, so quite light. I will actually be lining the last tier of this dress just to give it a bit of weight so that it flows the way that I want it to. That's worked out well for me in the past for cotton voile dresses. But yeah, make 9 or not, it's a dress that I've absolutely loved. And I am, or have, played with the patterns pieces quite a bit because this was a border print. So I have played around with where I put the floral details, just trying to make the most of it. It is a fabric hungry beast. I am making view D, so it's the one that the model is wearing. So 2 tiers, the skirt piece, all of the different various portions there, and the sleeve is very generous. So it does take up quite a bit. I had 4.5 yards of this fabric and used just about everything. I also am planning to make some piping out of it because of the areas that are just black in the garment that I'm making. I do want to add some piping details as they do in view B. So view B features quite a bit of piping, so I am going to insert piping as well, even though I'm doing view D. So that's my plan, and it's going to be, I think, my final project in my current space. So my family and I are going to be moving. It's been a long time coming. We're so incredibly grateful, but that does mean that there has been a lot of packing. I am recording this in front of my closet because this was the only recordable space in the whole house because there's stuff everywhere. So that's a bit of why I've been touch and go with videos, because I legitimately can't find the time space to actually record a video appropriately and get it out to you. But I wanted to settle down, even if it was sitting in front of my closet, to record this, to share with you as the year was coming to a close and the new year has begun. So I hope that you enjoyed this nonetheless. When I have more information to share with you about the new space, I will. But yeah, keep us in your prayers. I'm really excited, and that's about it. I think I was going to pack up my machine. I have packed up a lot of my sewing stuff, but I was going to pack away the machine, and then I said, you know what, there might be a few quiet nights where maybe I'm not in the mood to pack, but could do a little something. So I'm leaving this McCalls pattern out. I could not for the life of me find my cotton cording, which I had. I remember touching it physically in the past 2 weeks. And of course, when I needed it, could not find it. Because I'm making my own piping, I needed something to actually put to make the piping. But I'm going to actually go ahead and utilize yarn. Sound off in the comments below if that is a terrible idea, but I'm gonna do it anyways because I have no choice. Please, I hope it works and it doesn't shrink and do wonky things when it's washed. All right, so the thing that's gonna be holding me over, probably the last make that I'll have in this space, is going to be the McCalls M7925. And this leads me to say, I was looking over my videos at the start of last year, like my plans and goals for my sewing practice, but also my channel, in addition to my Make 9 and all of those things. And I love that I had that sort of as a capsule of what was on my mind, what I was thinking, what I was aspiring to do at the time. And I cannot wait to actually record those types of videos again as I wrap up. Okay. To see which of those goals I was actually able to reach and what things I hope to do in this year as we make our way through 2023. So I do plan and hope to have some of those videos out. And there's so many makes that never had their own like makes video. But many of those projects have been packed away, locked and sealed, so we'll see when we get to any of that. But all of that information will be coming soon, and I cannot wait to share that with you. I think that's going to have to be a wrap because, as you can see...
Hi, Mommy.
Hi, Umu.
Hi.
I'm no longer alone.
Hi.
Hi. All right, so stay creative, my friends, and I hope you're having a fabulous start to the new year as well. Bye-bye.